All right, so welcome back, everybody, for another deep dive.
Yeah.
And today, we're doing something pretty interesting.
Yeah.
We're going to be listening to the second epistle of John,
Wow.
but not just any reading of it.
Yeah.
We're going to be listening to the whole thing in Spanish.
Very cool.
I know. It might seem a little bit niche, like, why are we doing that?
Right.
But there's something really interesting, I think, about hearing this in a different language.
Yeah.
And we're going to talk about all the themes that are in 2nd John, and I think you guys are going to enjoy this one.
I'm excited.
So, this letter was written by the Apostle John sometime in the late 1st century AD, and it's addressed to this elect lady and her children.
Okay.
And scholars have debated for so long, who is this elect lady?
Right.
Is it an actual lady, or is it like talking about a church?
It's a good question.
Like, is that a metaphor?
Yeah. I mean, it's one of the things that makes this text so intriguing. You know, it's so short, but it's packed with kind of these mysteries and these questions that just keep you thinking, even all these centuries later. So.
Yeah. I think regardless of who it was addressed to, there's a message here that is valuable and that we can really benefit from. One of the things that John really emphasizes in this letter is truth.
Uh-huh.
But what do you think he means when he's talking about truth?
Well, that's a great question, I think. The concept of truth for John was fundamentally rooted in the person of Jesus Christ. And so when we think about the context of the early church, this is a time, Christianity is still relatively new. There's a lot of different ideas about what it means to be a Christian, what it means to follow Christ.
Right.
And so John's writing this letter in part to address some of those concerns, to really emphasize the core truths of the Christian faith.
And, he talks about deceivers.
Right.
People that are coming in and saying things that are not true.
Yeah, he even uses that really strong language. He calls them antichrists.
Yeah.
Which shows you just how seriously he took this issue of false teaching and deception.
Yeah, it makes you wonder, like, how did they even know back then, like, what was true and what wasn't?
That's the question, isn't it? You have all of these different interpretations floating around, and it's a challenge that I think we still face today. How do we sift through all the information, all the opinions, and really discern what is true?
Right.
And for John, I think, one of the key indicators was love.
Okay.
He talks about how this is love that we walk according to his commandments. So love isn't just this feeling, it's about action. It's about obedience. It's about aligning our lives with the truth.
I like that. That's a good point. It's not just about believing the right things. It's about doing them.
Exactly.
So walking in truth is about how we live our lives.
Yes.
It's about the choices we make every single day. And it really makes me think about, what are the things that are influencing me? Am I allowing myself to be deceived? Or am I clinging to the truth?
It's a challenge, especially in today's world. With so much information coming at us from all sides.
Right.
How do we know what to trust? How do we know what's real and what's not?
And John even goes so far as to say, like, don't even welcome these people into your homes.
Yeah.
If they're teaching things that are false.
That's a pretty radical statement. But I think it shows just how strongly he felt about the dangers of deception and how important it was to protect the community from those harmful influences.
Absolutely. Okay, I want to jump to the end of the letter.
Mm-hmm.
Because I love this part. He talks about wanting to visit and send greetings from the children of your elect sister.
Yeah.
And it's just such a personal touch.
It is.
Like, after all this heavy theological stuff.
It's easy to forget that this was a real letter.
Right.
Written to real people. And it gives us this glimpse into the lives of early Christians and the relationships that they had with each other.
I love that.
Yeah.
So as we think about this letter, and we think about what John's saying, what do you think is the biggest takeaway for us today?
Well, I think it's clear that John's message about truth, love, and discernment is just as relevant today as it was back then.
Yeah.
And, listening to this in Spanish really highlighted that for me.
What stood out to you the most, I think for me, what really struck me was how hearing it in a different language really emphasizes the universality of the message. It's not just for one specific time or culture, but it speaks to something deep within the human experience.
Yeah.
Like, this is a question that has been around for centuries. How do we navigate a world full of information? How do we discern what is true? And how do we live a life rooted in love? It's a question that John grappled with almost 2,000 years ago. And it's a question that we're still grappling with today. And I think that's what makes this letter so powerful.
It does. And I think, for listeners out there who maybe aren't familiar with 2nd John, or who haven't read it in a while, I encourage you to go back and take another look at it, to really listen to what John is saying, and to think about how his words can speak into your life today.
Yeah, that's good stuff. All right, guys, so we're going to wrap up there. Hopefully you enjoyed this little deep dive
Yeah.
into 2 John in Spanish, and we'll catch you in the next one.
See you later.